بدأت الحكاية منذ مئات السنين بين القبائل العربية في صحراء الجزيرة القاحلة، عندما تولد عشق بين الجواد والفارس. ورغم كل الظروف القاسية استمرت شعلة التلاحم بينهم حتى يومنا هذا. وقد حظيت الخيل العربية على مر السنين برعاية إلهية سخر فيها العديد من عشاق الخيل الذين حافظوا على هذا الإرث العتيق جيلا بعد جيل من المشرق إلى المغرب.
She couldn't run.
She could run.
She can, but
She got where she could run. Yeah, she could, but I mean, it was deformed, and with the pelvis knocked down, and the hip knocked down, because you could see the whole hip was down. So they said, you know, if you want her, we'll try and breed her, but we're not going to guarantee she can ever have a foal. We don't know whether she could ever get in foal. We don't know whether she could deliver a foal. He said, I'll be glad to sell you the full sister, which was 3 years old, very nice mare. We said, no, we want her.
which is Bint Bukra.
Which is Bint Bukra.
Yes.
And so they put her on a ship in a crate all by herself.
In full to Sama.
In full to Sama. And she went all the way to Wilmington, North Carolina, I believe it was, by herself. All the sailors looked after her. They put her on a van to Chickasha, Oklahoma.
And how long was the trip between Egypt and the States?
It was about 14 days.
14 days.
I think it was close to 14 days, if I remember right, maybe a little less. But then she was in quarantine a few days, and then on a van all the way halfway across the United States. And she just made it fine and had a filly.
Bint Masr.
Didn't miss her. So sometimes the gambles play off.
Yeah. But then she did also more.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she was our primary foundation mare. I think she had 11 foals altogether.
11?
11.
Bint Masr?
She had Bint Masr and, let's see. I'm trying to think, it was seven fillies and 4 colts, I believe.
Rosetta?
Mr. Rosetta, Regina, Rhodora. Who was the other one? I don't know. I just wrote about it yesterday. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And the colts she had were El Sharif, and then she had 2 by Abu Sudan, which were, the last one was absolutely the most beautiful foal she ever had. One of the most beautiful young stallions we ever produced.
Which is?
Sada Ibn Bukra. And Count Federico bought him when he bought half interest in Shah Zaman.
Yeah.
And we asked him never to ship the colt, to leave him in the States, and he didn't do that. And he shipped him to South America. And the horse was somewhat infertile, and he gelded him. He did produce. I mean, he did sire some, but I don't know why Federico gelded him. He never said a word to us. And then I don't know what happened to the horse after that. I guess he died.
And Sata Ibn Bukra.
Ibn Bukra is drop dead gorgeous.
By Ibn Sudan.
By Abu Sudan.
Abu Sudan and Bint Bukra.
Stunning.
You're going to have pictures of him in the book? Okay.
Yeah. No, I don't have many, but I have a picture of him being shown and then a picture of his head. And they did a short film of him that was beautiful. He was pure white and he had a black mane and tail. Just unbelievable horse. So it goes.
What did Bint Bukra give the horses? I mean, give your program exactly, different than other horses?
Well, to a degree, she was kind of an incubator mare. She more or less related relatively closely to the sire, without giving up a certain degree of herself, but For example, she had El Sharif, who was a stallion, and Rodora, both by Ibn Halima. They were very compact. She also had a very gorgeous bay filly that Gerald McCracken bought and unfortunately died very young.
You remember her name?
I called her Sherazade.
Shahrazad.
I believe. Was it Sherazade or Sharifa? Sharifa, I think we called her. She's mentioned in the book, and I have a picture of her. She was gorgeous. But again, the shorter coupling where Ibn Halima, you had the Daman Ibn Halima of the Farida line, Tabukra of the Sabah line, and they were shorter, more compact, square, very beautiful heads, not real tall, but very balanced. Could have had longer necks, but well shaped. And El Sharif was shown and was a good sire, but at that time there weren't a lot of straight Egyptians, so unfortunately it was somewhat limited. So those were the two by Ibn Halima, but three by Ibn Halima, and then she had a very nice filly called Ansada Regina by Ansada El Wazir. That was the other I was trying to think of.
Yeah.
El Wazir was a stallion we'd had bred in Egypt, and he was imported in utero. She was an extremely good mare. Unfortunately, she didn't live as long as the others, but she had several very nice fillies, and she was probably the best balanced of all of the Bukra daughters. Then we had Rosetta, and Rosetta had a full sister, a bay full sister that ran into a pipe as a yearling and broke her neck. So unfortunately that...
Rosetta, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Rosetta's full sister.
You don't recall her name?
Shahrazad.
Shahrazad, yes.
Beautiful bay filly. And then Sudan, we had Bint Sudan, which was a tall, leggy mare. Looked more on the style of Sudan, and still very kind of the Bukra. It was a good combination of the two, longer lined.
Which one of them represented the Bint Bukra more? Resembles Bint Bukra more?
I suppose maybe Rosetta.
Rosetta.
None of them really looked exactly like her, but in future generations, by reintroducing the blood, you can look today and see that Bukra face. So again, it was kind of dependent on the future breeding and how her blood was reintroduced back into the herd.
Again, doubling the female line, what you said earlier.
Yeah.
What were the other imports after Bint Bukra?
We brought in a really pretty Antar daughter called Adiba. She was out of Ibtisam. Unfortunately, she was about to fall and choked on some oats, and we lost her. Very pretty filly, just really beautiful, extreme head.
Adiba.
Adiba, chestnut, deep chestnut.
And she's by?
By Antar. She was by Antar, out of Ibtisam.
Out of Ibtisam.
So it was a Siklawi,
Yeah.
Moniet family.
So most of the mares you bought were Siklawis.
Well, and then we brought in Bint El Awiya. She was the Bint El Bahrain. She was also an Antar daughter.
Yes.
Nice mare. Well balanced, good size, very nice neck. Kind of a longer foreface, but attractive mare. She produced well. We sold her. I believe we sold her later. And then we brought in, the two Nazir daughters. I think that was it. Oh, no, the two Sama. We brought in Bint Sama, which was Sama out of Futna, which again brought in the Farida line.
Yes.
And she produced well for us, with Ibn Halima in particular.
When did you decide to reach Babson and take that mare? Did you lease the mare out of Babson, or you bought the mare out?
Which one? The Falima?
Yes.
Well, actually, he leased us 4 mares.
4?
4.
When did you do that?
That was in the early 60s, right about the time Ibn Halim was old enough to breed.
So that was before you brought Bint Bukra, early 60s?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
I think it was 60, might have been 63.
Yes.
It was just before she came in.
Yes.
And there were 4, Fay Sabah, Elmar, Fay Haba, and Elmar, which were all Daman with the exception of Elmar, which went back to the old Marufa line. And Anna, I'm sorry, Anna was also a beautiful mare, gosh, unfortunately a real problem breeder. So those were the mares that we got from him, and out of the group, Elmar produced a colt that was was nice and was used by the Groves in, I think it was Washington. And she had a nice filly, and we had a nice line that came from that. And of course then Fahaba produced Falima, which was Ibn Halima, and that produced the Nile family, which was one of our most beautiful families.
Yes.
And in return for leasing the mares, old Faisaba didn't ever produce because she was too old, and neither did Anna. So out of the group we got 2 or 3, and that's when Abbas Pasha, we gave Abbas Pasha to Babson in return. So he went to revitalize the straight Egyptians there, and then of course Babson also used Ibn Moniet to produce Fay Moniet that we talked about.
But at the time you leased the mare from Babson, what was the size of Babson's herd?
I really couldn't tell. It wasn't huge. I mean, it was probably, maybe he had 25, 30 mares. He had the old stallion Faildine, which was gray, and the full brother Faysir. Faildine I would have killed.
Faysir was the bay one, wasn't it?
No, gray. He was black.
Black.
Dead black.
Dead black, huh?
And his full brother was white, and just as different as night and day. It was night and day. But Faildine could have sat down in Egypt. He was just a spectacular old horse. And I'll never forget, he had eyes like that.
Babson horses had good eyes?
Yes.
In general?
In general.
In general. Where did that come from?
I would suppose it came up through Fadl and Marufa.
And inbreeding that?
Yeah.
Yes.
But his old Faildine daughters, you could have set them right down in the middle of the EAO's herd that day, and they would have been perfectly at home. Just as good, every bit as good.
You couldn't have bred him, Faildine?
He was 25 years old.
He was not breeding?
No, Babson said, take him home with you if you want. Well, we just had Ibn Halima come in. We only had 2 fillies and these mares that he was going to lease us. And, we were going back overseas to take an old horse like that. He died shortly after anyway. But he was a magnificent stallion. I just wish he was still around today. Facer, on the other hand, was shorter legged, squatty, beautiful long neck, pretty head, but the influence of the Facer, which was constantly reintroduced, in time gave the Babson horses a heavier.
This is what I wanted to
Much
ask.
heavier.
How did the horses get
That's how they got it.
heavier and shorter?
Because I don't know if it was Babson or if it was Homer Watson. Homer loved
But
Facer.
Babson was older, you said.
Yeah,
he was
when
90.
And when he passed away, it was left to Homer Watson, his manager, to continue running the farm.
Yeah.
And he continually reintroduced the Fadl blood through Facer when the horses just they looked like, to me.
Because Faildine was not breeding. Or
Faildine died.
passed away, yes.
And he had some very beautiful Faildine daughters that, as a matter of fact, we eventually got some of that blood. But he had a lot of bay horses, young bay mares that were very short, low to the ground, and black or very dark bay. And it changed the type. And the Babson type, unfortunately, in my opinion, became heavy and lost the elegance that the old Marufa and the Faildines, the Fadans had. It just kept getting heavier and heavier.
So it is not inbreeding, it's wrong inbreeding that took you in that.
It was wrong line breeding.
Yes.
Close line breeding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do line breeding, cross line breeding, without reaching that.
Well, look what we did with Nazir.
Yes.
I mean, of course, you can go too far with anything.
Yeah.
And you need to know when to step out. And there again, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. To some people, they like a square, shorter horse, maybe. Some people want a longer, bigger horse. Some people have different tastes in heads. Some people want only a short head. Some people want a longer head. Some people don't care. So it really comes down to selection and what the vision is of the person who's developing a breeding program.
Yeah.
You can select for anything. In time, you'll get it.
I mean, it's our influence also.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You look at some of the old, I was just looking at some of the old pictures of desert-bred horses. They weren't necessarily selecting for a head like many people do today.
I mean, it doesn't help. Doesn't help if you want to run from enemy. Definitely speed was stamina.
Speed, stamina, and of course they had the basic traits of the high-tailed tail and the relatively short coupling, and you know the way they carried themselves, and the pride, and the endurance, and certainly there were some beautiful ones, no question. But it's interesting when you go back and read the history.